She watched him laugh. Not at a joke. At her. Across the courtroom, in his $15,000 suit, surrounded by 5 attorneys who looked like they'd never lost anything in their lives. And beside her, a lawyer so young the bailiff had asked if she was lost. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. The hearing hadn't even started yet. But Richard had already made it clear what he thought of this moment. Of her. Of the 23 years she'd spent building a life he was now dismantling with a signature. His lead attorney, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, leaned over and whispered something. Richard smirked. She didn't need to hear it to know. They thought this was over before it began. Maybe they were right. Her lawyer hadn't said much on the drive over. Hadn't promised anything. Hadn't even told her to relax. Just trust me. And now, sitting in a courtroom that smelled like old wood and older grudges, she wasn't sure trust was something she had left to give. That was the moment everything quietly began to take an unexpected turn. This is a golden heart story for anyone who's ever walked into a room and been underestimated. For anyone who's ever wondered if standing up for themselves was worth the cost. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, have you ever been dismissed by someone who thought they knew your worth? Now let's continue with the story. Her name was Diane. 51 years old. She didn't look it, not in the way people meant when they said that. She looked exactly 51. Lived in, tired in places makeup couldn't fix. She used to host dinner parties for Richard's business partners. Used to know everyone's name, everyone's drink, everyone's anniversary. Now she couldn't remember the last time someone had asked her how she was. Not really asked. She'd spent 2 decades raising their daughter, managing the house, organizing his life so seamlessly he forgot she existed. Until he wanted out. The divorce papers came on Tuesday. She was watering the gardenias. Richard Calloway, 54. Self-made, ruthless in the way people called visionary when you had enough money. He'd built a commercial real estate empire from nothing. And he reminded people of that often. Diane used to love that about him, the hunger. The belief that he could reshape the world if he worked hard enough. She didn't know when that hunger had turned cold. When she'd become another asset to manage. Or worse, deadweight. He'd remarried in his mind long before the paperwork. A 32-year-old marketing VP named Simone who laughed at his jokes and didn't ask him to come home early. Diane had seen the texts. She didn't cry. She just stopped sleeping. And then there was the lawyer. Her name was Ava Morales. 29 years old, brown eyes. Hair pulled back like she was trying to be taken seriously and knew it wasn't working. She'd passed the bar 8 months ago. Diane had found her through a friend of a friend who said, "She's hungry. And she's smart. But she's never handled anything like this." Richard's legal team had 73 years of combined experience. Ava looked like she still got carded. But when Diane met her for the first time in a cramped office above a dry cleaner, Ava didn't flinch. She looked Diane in the eye and said, "He's going to try to make you feel small. That's the strategy. Are you ready to feel small and stay anyway?" Diane had nodded. Because what else was there to do? The courtroom was filling up now. Richard's team moved like a machine. Leather binders, perfectly coordinated. They didn't look at Diane. Didn't need to. Ava sat beside her, flipping through a single yellow legal pad. Diane leaned over. Whisper. "Are we ready?" Ava didn't look up. "No." Diane's stomach dropped. "But we're here anyway." Something about that, the honesty. The refusal to pretend made Diane sit up straighter. Maybe this was a mistake. Or maybe She didn't finish the thought. The judge entered. All rise. Judge Carolyn Brennan, 62. Federal court veteran. Face like stone, eyes that miss nothing. She sat. Everyone followed. Richard's lead attorney stood immediately. Tall, confident. Your Honor, this is a straightforward division of assets. My client has been more than generous in his settlement offer. We're here because Mrs. Calloway has refused a fair and reasonable objection. Ava's voice was quiet, but it cut clean through the room. The attorney paused, smiled, not kindly. Counsel, I haven't even finished. Ava stood slowly. You called it straightforward. It's not. You called it generous. It's not. And you called it fair. She looked right at Richard. It's not. Diane felt her throat tighten. Richard leaned back in his chair, whispered something to the man beside him. They both smiled. Judge Brennan's eyes flicked to Ava. Counselor, do you have an argument or just contradictions? Ava didn't blink. Both, Your Honor. A pause. The judge's mouth twitched. Proceed. Ava didn't grandstand, didn't pace. She just started listing facts. The assets Richard claimed were his, the properties purchased during the marriage, the business expansions Diane had financially supported by selling her mother's home. The judge listened. Richard's attorney objected twice. Both times, Ava had documents. And then quietly, almost as an afterthought, Ava said, Your Honor, we'd also like to address the matter of Mrs. Calloway's contributions to Calloway Holdings that were never formally compensated. Richard's attorney stood. Your Honor, this is absurd. Mrs. Calloway was not an employee. She has no claim to. She was the unpaid coup for 9 years. Silence. Ava slid a folder across to the bench. Emails, contracts she negotiated, vendor relationships she managed. All under his name, none under hers. Diane stared. She'd forgotten half of those things. But Ava hadn't. Richard wasn't smiling anymore. The recess came fast. Diane stepped into the hallway, legs unsteady. Ava followed. You didn't tell me you did all that, Diane whispered. You didn't think it mattered. Ava said, That's the problem. Diane looked at her. Why are you doing this? Ava hesitated, just for a second. Because I watched my mom get erased the same way. Diane's chest tightened. Before she could respond, Richard appeared at the end of the hall, alone. He walked slowly, hands in his pockets, that same empty smile. Diane. She didn't answer. This is embarrassing, for both of us. Then settle fairly, Ava said. Richard looked at her like she was a child. I don't know what law school told you, sweetheart, but this isn't a movie. You're out of your depth. Ava stepped forward. Try me. Richard laughed. Actually laughed. You know what I'm worth? I know what she's worth, Ava said. And it's more than you've offered. Richard's smile faded. He looked at Diane. You really want to do this? Drag this out? Humiliate yourself? Diane's voice came out quieter than she wanted. You already did that. He stared at her. And for the first time in months, maybe years, she didn't look away. Richard turned and walked back toward the courtroom. Ava waited until he was gone. You okay? Diane nodded. She wasn't. But she would be. They returned to the courtroom. Judge Brennan reviewed the documents in silence. Then she looked up. Mr. Calloway. Richard straightened. Your assets are substantial. Your marriage lasted 23 years. And according to these records, your wife contributed significantly both financially and operationally to the growth of your business. Richard's attorney started to speak. The judge raised a hand. I'm not finished. She looked at Diane. Mrs. Calloway, I'm ordering a full forensic audit of Calloway Holdings. Any contributions you made, financial, operational, or otherwise, will be independently valued. Richard's face went white. Your Honor, that's it. Fair, the judge said. That's what that is. She closed the folder. We'll reconvene in 30 days. The gavel fell. Diane didn't move. Ava touched her arm gently. We're not done, but we're not losing. Diane looked at her. And for the first time in a long time, she believed someone. The weeks that followed were strange. Diane had expected rage, threats, Richard's usual scorched earth tactics. Instead, silence. His lawyers requested extensions. Depositions were delayed. Ava said it meant they were scrambling. Diane wasn't sure what it meant. She just knew she was sleeping again. They met 3 times a week, sometimes at Ava's office, sometimes at a diner near the courthouse that served burnt coffee and pancakes that tasted like cardboard. Ava didn't talk like a lawyer. She talked like a person. You ever think about what you'd do after this? Diane stirred her coffee. I used to garden. Used to? He said it made the house look cluttered. Ava stared at her. Diane. I know. Do you? Diane looked out the window. I became someone I don't recognize. Ava leaned forward. Then let's find her again. But beneath the quiet there was something else. Attention Diane couldn't name. Ava had stopped mentioning the audit, stopped talking about timelines. And once, when Diane asked if everything was okay, Ava smiled quickly and said, Fine, just a procedural stuff. Diane didn't push, but she felt it. The unease sitting just beneath the surface. The call came on a Thursday. Ava's voice was tight. We need to meet. Now. Diane's stomach dropped. The diner was nearly empty. Ava sat in the back booth, hands folded. Diane slid in across from her. What happened? Ava exhaled. Richard's team found something. Found what? A clause. In the prenup you signed. Diane went cold. I didn't sign a prenup. Ava slid a paper across the table. You did. 22 years ago. It was embedded in the mortgage documents for your first house. Diane stared at the signature. Hers. She didn't remember. What does it say? Ava's voice was barely above a whisper. That in the event of divorce, you waive claim to any business assets acquired during the marriage. The room tilted. That's everything. I know. Diane looked up. Can we fight it? Ava hesitated. I don't know. And that honesty, the crack in Ava's voice shattered something in Diane. You said we had a chance. I thought we did. You thought? Ava's eyes filled. I'm trying, Diane. I'm trying so hard, but you're a rookie. The words came out before Diane could stop them. Ava flinched. Diane stood. I should have hired someone else. She left. Ava didn't follow. Diane sat in her car for an hour. She didn't cry. She just sat. Her phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Told you. She deleted it. Then she thought about Ava. About the way she'd looked when Diane walked out. About the way she'd fought when no one else would. Diane opened her email. Scrolled back. Found the message Ava had sent the night before their first hearing. It was short. I know you're scared. I am too. But I won't let you disappear. Diane read it 3 times. Then she started the car. If this story reminds you of someone you lost or almost lost, share it with them. Diane found Ava at her office. The lights were still on. She knocked. Ava opened the door. Eyes red. Diane. I'm sorry. Ava shook her head. You don't have to. I do. Diane stepped inside. You've been the only person who saw me. Really saw me. And I threw that back at you because I was scared. Ava's voice cracked. I should have caught it. The prenup. I should have. You're 29, Diane said. And you've done more for me than anyone in 20 years. They stood there. 2 women, both terrified, both trying. So what do we do? Diane asked. Ava wiped her eyes. We go back in, and we make them see you. The final hearing was quiet. Judge Brennan reviewed the prenup. Richard sat back, confident. Then Ava stood. Your Honor, we're not contesting the prenup. Diane's heart stopped. But we are asking the court to recognize that the language in this document is unconscionable. Mrs. Calloway signed this without independent legal counsel. She didn't know what she was signing, and it was deliberately hidden in unrelated paperwork. Richard's attorney stood. Your Honor, this is fraud, Ava said. It's fraud. The room went silent. Judge Brennan looked at Richard, then at Diane, then back at the prenup. I'm nullifying this agreement. Richard shot to his feet. You can't. I just did. The gavel fell. Diane didn't hear the rest. She just felt Ava's hand on hers. And for the first time in years, she felt seen. 3 months later, Diane planted gardenias in her own yard. Ava stopped by with coffee. They didn't talk about the settlement. They talked about what came next. And Diane realized she wasn't who she used to be. She was someone better. Someone who'd fought and won. Thank you for spending this time with Golden Heart Stories. If this story moved you, like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Share with us in the comments section.